Mark Bastian here, coming to you from Seed Terminator, based in Adelaide. Here to talk through the Case IH platform as part of our new distribution agreement with CNHI. When the machines arrive to your dealership, they will arrive boxed up, crated up with all their respective parts inside the box. However, once that's torn down, this is what it's going to look like, ready to be installed on the machine. As it sits here, we've got our inlet chutes and our snails that are feeding the material into the Terminator. We add a 3-groove pulley to the PTO pulley. We replace the genuine jack shaft of the Case IH with our own Seed Terminator jack shaft, and therefore we run a 3-groove banded belt down to our jack shaft and then down to the Seed Terminator. Continuing on from there, on the Case IH, as we come down to the gearbox, which we'll go through in more detail in a minute, we also add an overrun clutch. Because it is a brake system, as it starts to slow down, we want to allow the Seed Terminator to naturally lose its own momentum. By having this overrun clutch, the driveline can stop, but the Terminator will be allowed to wind down slowly. Our gearbox has a ratio of 1:1, with a fan pulley underneath providing the near double up on speed to run the mills at 2950 RPM. From a cooling perspective on the gearbox, we've got a heat sink on the back here and we run a fan pulley under the gearbox. This allows us to draw air up from underneath the Terminator to blow over the gearbox and keep the system cool. It's been a really good solution for us and we've been running it now for quite a long time. So there are 3 main components on the Terminator that are actually terminating weed seeds. We've got the screen sitting over the top, we've got the rotor, and we've got the flails. The rotor and the flails are the actual moving parts of the Terminator. The screen is stationary and sits over the top of the rotor. I'll show you now, if I move this slowly, you'll see the other rotor moving inside that screen. So as you can see in there, that's the rotor and the flails moving inside that other screen. This is our Aero Impact 3. We've been running this now for 4 harvests. This main screen here, we call it the Aero Impact 3. It has 3 rows of screens inside of it. Basically, as the material falls off the back of the sieves, it falls into the inlet chute of the Terminator. It makes its way in here. The flails will be the first point of contact for the chaff coming into the Terminator. These flails are sitting at 2,950 RPM. So they'll come down, the material will get hit by this first flail, smashed into the first screen. It will then hit the first set of beta bars, and then another screen inside, and then another row of beta bars, and then the final screen sits here on the outside of the machine. And then if we just look over here, all the material will then exit out of these exit chutes here and be distributed out the back of the machine. One of the staples or key principles of Seed Terminator has always been, there's 2 major ones. We've always been mechanical drive and we've always had horizontal mills. One of the big advantages of horizontal mills, it allows us to get a really nice spread out the back of the combine, with the material being able to spread the full width of the front. This allows all the residue to be spread evenly across the back of the header, putting some of that valuable nutrients back into the ground. The other advantage is it gives us really easy serviceability on these main components. When you want to access and service your machine, it's very easy to take those inlet chutes off, pull the snail off, and then the machine will present exactly as it is here. So very easy access for servicing. On the screen, you've got 5 bolts that hold the screen in place. It's just a matter of undoing those 5 bolts, lifting that screen off. That will then give you access to the rotors and the flails. The flails are held in place with a bolt with a lock nut system underneath, and the rotors are held in place with a taper lock nut similar that you would see on a car hub. All these components are precisely balanced prior to leaving the factory so that farmers or dealers are able to replace all these components without having to rebalance everything. Everything's ready to be installed straight from factory. We work on customers being able to replace the screens in about 20 to 30 minutes. 30 minutes probably the first time to do it, but they usually get it down to 20 minutes once they know what they're doing. And you could basically rebuild all the main components in a couple of hours in your pre-season if you needed to. We have 3 major wearing components: the screens, the rotors and the flails, and they wear very differently according to soil type, and how much time your customer is spending with the header on the ground drawing sand and material into the combine. I would recommend speaking to your local commercial manager or product specialist so they can speak to your area specifically and understand the factors that may impact the wear on those components. In regards to the driveline, we run the gearbox down from the gearbox to our fan pulley. From the fan pulley we run 2 separate belts to the 2 spindles that ultimately turn the rotors. On top of that, there are 2 tensioners that run underneath the machine as well to keep those belts tight. From a servicing perspective, there are 2 grease nipples that are underneath those 2 tensioners that are to be done on a 50-hour service. The next area I'd like to cover is the monitoring of the machine. If we have a look on here, the middle indicator here is your 2 rotors. When the rotors are running empty and at full capacity, these 2 indicators will be directly up. As the machine starts to work and load up with material, these 2 needles will start to open up, and that is showing you how much they are dropped from running at 100% capacity. So at 100%, full RPM, the needles are running straight up. As it starts to open up, they are working harder and harder. On the top left and the top right, those 2 indicators are showing the temperature sensor of the 2 spindles. Bottom left is the temperature sensor of the gearbox, and then we also have a vibration sensor in the machine to try and pick up if any problems are starting to occur. The other thing that's been part of the standard Seed Terminator bill of materials in the last few years has been our magnet tray. We install a magnet tray across the back of the sieves. Many customers ask us how the machines handle rocks. The Terminators are very used to handling rocks, however metal and other materials like that are not great to put into the Terminator, so we install a magnet tray across the back of the sieve. This will often pick up little bits of wire, horseshoes, spanners that have been left in the combine, and this protects those materials falling into the Terminator and doing any damage. However, if that does happen, one of the key benefits of the Terminator driveline has always been that it's a belt drive as opposed to a direct gearbox drive. By having a belt drive, if you do unfortunately end up with something inside the rotor that means that it stops suddenly, it'll ultimately mean you just smoke a belt, in which case you replace that belt and you can keep going forward. At Seed Terminator, we really pride ourselves on our mill technology. We see this as a continuously improving space and something that we want our customers to be able to follow us on the journey. Even here, since 2016, you can see some of the development over the last few years, starting with our Aero Impact 1 here, through to our Aero Impact 2, and finally our Aero Impact 3, our current platform. Any of our customers who bought back in 2016 have the ability to purchase any of our latest mill technology and plug and play into their chassis so they can continue to reap the benefits of our development space. Some of the other areas that we've been working on is trying to develop more screens to suit more crop conditions throughout all of Australia. I'll just quickly touch on a couple that we have right here. Firstly, this is our bypass screen. The bypass screen has been designed to, in essence, bypass the Seed Terminator. So you will unbolt your standard Aero Impact 2, Aero Impact 3 screens and bolt in your bypass screens. The bypass screens sit straight in the same positions as the Aero Impact 3. As you can see here, a lot of the internal material has been removed and this turns a Terminator basically back into a chaff spinner. However, we are still able to get very high kill on plants such as wild radish, but lower kill rates on ryegrass. The other screen I want to touch on here is our bean screen. This has been designed for when you are trying to handle different crop conditions. Primarily, where we're looking at when we're trying to deal with tough and green material, or when we're dealing with very ropey, viney plants. This allows for easier throughput of the material while still maintaining a high kill rate. Going forward, we're really excited to be working with you all. We are currently in full production here in Lonsdale in South Australia with machines ready to be distributed nationally across the country. We've got stock ready to go. Please reach out when you're ready if you have any more questions or anything we can do to help. Looking forward to working with you all.